guys, welcome to Sips with Scrubs, a nurse podcast where we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of being a nurse. I'm your host, Nurse Laney. If you are new to this, welcome, and if you are not new, welcome back. So today we are going to be getting into another story time. I don't know, I guess I've been a nurse for a while now because I'm like, how do I have all these stories? But I got some stuff that I wanted to share with y'all. So I'll be sharing another story time today. Today we'll be sipping on Andre. It's a pink Moscato. I've had it before here on the podcast, so I'm not going to go into great detail about the alcohol content and all that, but that is what I'll be sipping on. For those who are listening, wherever you are, sipping on some tea, water, coffee, whatever you got, pour up, girl or sir, and we're going to get into today's episode. So we're going to get into what would Lainey do. So the post that I found is talking about working like a lot of shifts in a row. So I'm going to read it off to you guys. Y'all, tonight starts my 1 out of 5 12s in a row. I generally cannot wrap my head around it. LOL. Y'all, please pray for me and leave some tips below so I don't pass away in the middle of it. First of all, I do not recommend working this many shifts in a row. It's a big no-no for me. The only way I would condone working like this amount of shifts is if you have like something coming up as far as like a vacation or something like that, and you don't want to use your PTO for whatever reasons. That's the only reason I could see possibly doing like a lot of shifts in a row. But other than that, I would not recommend. I definitely would not recommend if you're like a newer nurse, because sometimes nursing is just overwhelming in general. So for you to be working all these shifts back to back without giving yourself a mental break can be very difficult. Now, I've never worked 5 shifts in a row, but I have worked 5 shifts in a week. Once again, wouldn't recommend. And me doing that was like contingent on like giving all my patients back, or like you have to have like some boundaries and go into it knowing like I'm just here to work, you just trying to make it through your shift type of thing. You're not going above and beyond with your nursing care, because it's just impossible, in my opinion, to do that for 5 12-hour shifts. So you pick and choose your battle basically when you're doing stuff like this. But in general, like I said, I would not recommend it unless you're going on vacation or something like that. But if you are going to do it, don't. No, I'm gonna really tell you how to do it. So like I was saying, I did have 5 12s that I've done in the week before, but I put my off days like strategically, and the only reason why I did it is because it was during the pandemic, so there is not a lot going outside the hospital. Like in your personal life, there's not anything to do but go to work, so that's the reason why I did it. Like I said, I still don't recommend doing it because it still takes a mental toll on you. So if you are doing it, it definitely would be great to have like a vision in mind, like I'm doing this because they're giving me an incentive, which was what was the case for me. They had a extra bonus going around, so that's why I did it. But as far as in a row, I've only done max 4 12-hour shifts in a row. And honestly, it wasn't that bad. You just kind of have to know, like I mentioned before, what you're getting into when you're going into it. You kind of have to expect for at least like 2 out of the 4 in a row to be hell. Like it's the same as working 3 shifts in a row. 1 out of the 3 is probably not going to go well. And then if you make it through unscathed, you just thank God for that, because it's just like you are heightening your probability of like something going wrong because you're there more often. But all you do for the tips that I would provide is simply don't do anything when you're at home. You need a meal prep, or you need to have your food situation in line before going into work. So you already need to know like what are you eating on your break, and then what are you going to eat at home. Like already kind of have that planned out so you could do minimal thinking on like once you get off of work. I'd recommend literally going to work, coming home, showering, doing some type of something to decompress, whether that be like a long bath, shower, workout, meditation, praying, I don't know, whatever you do to decompress after a shift, I would do that, and then I would go to sleep, and I just try to maximize on the amount of rest I get, especially if you're working nights. Nights can be pretty okay. That's when I did most of my shifts like in a row like that. On days is very difficult because we're running around every shift on days pretty much, unless it's like the weekend, then you'll get a little bit of lag time. But if you're going to do this, I mean, I'm saying this 5 in a row could be anything, but I always try to avoid like Mondays and Fridays because those tend to be the busier days, because Mondays you're pretty much admitting, and then Fridays you're discharging and then possibly admitting as well. So you just kind of have to be very strategic about this. But that would be my tips really, is just like don't have anything planned and kind of just know like you're just trying to make it through the shift. Do your basic minimum nursing care. Don't be doing no extra stuff. You already know you're coming back the next day. You know you're probably going to have the same patient. So like do like 2 patient baths out of your 5 or something like that. Or like don't be doing baths on people that you know are going to discharge. You can take a bath at home. Like do it on your bedbound incontinent patients when you're already changing them. Stuff like that. So that's what I recommend for people who are doing that. As I said, I don't recommend doing it, so I advise against it. But if you are going to do it, those are my tips. If you guys have any tips in regards to working 5/12s in a row, definitely leave them down below in the comments, and then I will post about it on my Instagram as Tips with Scrubs for those who follow me on Instagram. And you guys can leave your comment on what you would like to do or what would you suggest to do on there. So next we're going to get into this story time. Okay, so today's story time is actually about a nurse more so than a patient. This did happen at a job that I worked previously. I still work for this hospital system, but I'm no longer working on a unit. And this is kind of like one of the things that added to one of the reasons why I left. And you guys will understand why once I get into the story. But I was coming onto my shift. I work days at this point, and I'm receiving shift change report or bedside shift report from the offgoing nurse. And I honestly don't know how long she's been a nurse from. She's from another country, so I don't know if she was a nurse there before she came to America, or I don't know anything about this. I mentioned this in a previous episode. I do have people I'm cool with their work and we talk about other things, but I don't really like be asking people about their personal life. I'm not that type of person. I'm more of the come to work, get my job done, and go home type of nurse. So I don't know anything else about her. I just know that she is from another country. So anyway, I'm saying that to say, or I said that to say that because of the action she did led me to believe that she was a newer nurse, because I can't see a older nurse doing something like this, but you just never know. So I'm getting shift change from her. She's telling me how the patient has complained about pain all night. And I'm asking her, like, did she give him anything for the pain? And she says no. I've had multiple problems with this with night shift nurses, and honestly, it turns into like a whole night shift versus day shift thing for some people. But for me, it's not even like that, because I'm like, I used to work night shift, so I'm more like holding you accountable. I don't understand why you would just let somebody go in pain or continue to be in pain throughout the entire shift without addressing it. If you don't have any pain meds and you need to call somebody and get an order for something, it's not like you did something and then it didn't work or whatever. You didn't do anything. So that's my problem with these night shift nurses that I used to work with. It'd be a lot of instances when I come on my shift and it's like, oh, the patient blood pressure has been this high or whatever. And I'm like, okay, well, did you give them anything for it? And they're like, no, I didn't want to wake up the doctor. I'm like, really? And then aside from that, at the facility I work at, they have a nurse practitioner that's like on call. So why didn't you just ask them? I just never understand. They come up with all sorts of excuses, and it's very negligent in my opinion. But that's one of the reasons why I no longer work on that unit. But she told me that the patient had been in pain all night. I asked her, did she give him anything for it? She said no. So I'm just like, okay. Does he have anything ordered? And then I think he did not, and she didn't want to call for it or whatever. So I'm just like, whatever, because at this point, this is like another day in the life at this job. This is not unusual. They don't really do anything at night on that unit. They literally just sit there, sleep, watch TV, and don't answer call lights. And I'm not even being shady. That's literally what they do. I know that for a fact because I stayed late a couple of shifts like to like 11 or midnight or something because they're short. And I've seen what they do. Like, so I know this is for fact. I also had some other day shift nurses who worked all night at that unit and techs that I'm familiar with, and I know how their work ethic is, and they say like they don't do anything. So I know that to be true. Moving along with the story. So I go into the room, I introduce myself to the patient, let them know I'm going to be the nurse for the night. So he proceeds to tell me about the pain while she's in the room. And he's like, yeah, I have pain right here in my calf. He was like, this is the same sort of pain I've had before when I had a DVT. I've had clots before and I've not been on my medication to prevent them because of something that was going on. I can't remember what the rationale was, but he said that it felt like the same type of pain he had before when he had a DVT. So at this point, this patient is a COVID patient. And for those who are familiar with some of the side effects and complications of being a COVID patient, they're more likely to develop clots. So that's like a known thing for people who've worked on COVID units for a while. And this nurse had been because we were the COVID unit. So it's kind of like the math isn't mathing sort of thing. The symptoms are laid out there in front of you and you failed to put them together. One, the patient has a history of blood clots. Okay. The patient has COVID, which puts them at risk for having blood clots. The patient said this pain is right in his calf. He's had that exact pain before when he had a blood clot. So to me, that would lead me to think, maybe I should tell somebody about this. But unfortunately, all nurses are not the same. And I'm just keeping it a buck. Like, I don't know what else to tell you. Nurses don't be nursing sometimes, and I hate to see it. So to me, that's common sense. And I'm just looking at her like, hello, like, you failed to do anything. He complained about this pain and you didn't put any of this together. He's telling you that he's felt this before and it feels like the same thing. So that should make you worrisome. So anyway, I go on to tell the doctor and I'm like, hey, can we get an ultrasound Doppler of his calf, whatever. And we get it done and it came back positive for a DVT. So I proceed to write the nurse up. So there's this, like, I don't want to call it app, but like a website or something at my facility where you can like report safety issues, I guess is the best way to say it. So this is where you report stuff like when patients have fell or like somebody has sustained a work-related injury or like something put a patient at risk of harm, whether they actually were harmed in the process or it just put them at risk. Like this is the site they use to like detail this stuff. And the reason why I did this is because I've experienced before in my nursing career where people were not, like higher ups were not aware of what was actually going on the units because nobody was communicating that. And us nurses are partially responsible for that. I feel like you can't really complain about your situation when you're not doing anything to make your situation better. I'm going to do a separate story time about what I'm referring to, but I've just seen it before. So I wanted to make them aware because I'm like, this is an issue. That patient could have developed, pulmonary embolism. I'm like, my brain is going dumb. Okay, like pulmonary embolism, an MI, a stroke, any of the things that can result from having a blood clot dislodge. You know what I'm saying? That could put you at a way higher risk of that because you have a DVT and you didn't do anything to address it for 12 hours. That's just utterly insane to me. So I reported her on that website. I don't think I put her name, but I put that, basically just what happened. And then I wasn't aware that it popped up this quickly from managers, but my manager literally came around the corner like within 3 minutes and was like, hey, I saw you put this report in. And then she basically asked me to tell her about it. So I don't know if it was a matter of like, why did you report it sort of thing? Or like, I'm just trying to see from the horse's mouth what actually happened since I'm here. My manager, for those who have put 2 and 2 together by watching all these podcasts and stuff, she's not the best in my opinion. So I didn't know what kind of vibe I was getting, but obviously I'm not the type of person to care about pushback and everything else. And honestly, I'm also the type of person that if you did try to push back on me, I'm going to report you to HR. And I would encourage more nurses to develop that habit from me. Don't be afraid to speak out. Don't be afraid when you see something, say something type of thing, be a whistleblower, whatever you got to do. Because at the end of the day, I get like nursing is kind of similar to like the police thing, like with like protect your own sort of thing. But like, what are you protecting? Somebody who's willing to put other human lives at risk, or somebody who's lazy? Like, you don't want to call a doctor because you're scared or you're lazy. Like, I don't know. I don't accept that as an answer. That's just not, it shouldn't be a thing. And people shouldn't be scared to report those sorts of things. It's going to make the healthcare community better as a whole. So I highly encourage it. But I do understand that some people are like scared of their jobs. But technically speaking, you can report the fact that they're trying to give you pushback and all these other sorts of things. There's like stuff in place for stuff like that like it's like discrimination and all this other stuff. So I mean, they say that nursing is supposed to be like the #1 honest job or something like that. So why we not being honest? I'm confused. I didn't say the girl name, and even if I did, I mean, you did do it. So sorry, not sorry. You ignored somebody for 12 hours. I'm not sorry that I told on you. It's just not. So that's my story time for today. Y'all let me know what y'all thought about that below in the comments. I really and what y'all thought about my actions, because I don't know if everybody would agree per se on what I did. I know I agree with what I did. That's why I did it. I didn't even really hesitate. And honestly, like I told y'all before, it wasn't like something that I've experienced like one time on that unit with nurses like not addressing patient complaints. And it's more of a thing of them being lazy. So that's really part of the reason why I did it. I'm not really one of those people that after one mistake, I'm going to be like, ooh, this, that, or the third. No, like I've experienced it several times with this nurse. So that's exactly why I did what I did. Like somebody needs to be told about it. I think on those who are listening to the podcast, I think on my YouTube channel that I did do, like I went into depth on some of the negligent things that went on that unit, on the why I'm quitting this job video, if y'all want to check that out. But like I have my reasons for why I did what I did, but y'all just let me know based off of what I said. Would y'all have done the same thing? And what do you feel about my approach? So now we're at the end of the episode. We're going to scrub and sip. So this maybe like a week ago, I went to the ER to have to work a shift there, because for those who are not familiar with this channel or this podcast, I do work in the float pool, so they float me everywhere. So I was in the ER, and this is my first time working in the ER off orientation with this facility. So I didn't know where anything is or how this stuff worked. The charting system was completely different, and it was just a mess. Like I did okay, but in my mind I was a mess. And towards the end of the shift, my patient went bananas on me. He started having like allergic reaction / seizure, and everything went crazy from there. So I'm scrubbing that because I was just like, what? Like it was all good just a minute ago. What happened? But I'm also sipping to that moment because the teamwork was remarkable. That is one thing I like about working in the ER, is that I know that they know how to respond to emergent situations, because like they live their nursing career in emergent situations. So I don't ever have to be like, oh, is somebody going to help me, or do they know what to do, or anything like that. Like it was just pure action, and I lived for that moment. I felt like completely like at ease, even though what was going on with my patient was crazy. He was seasoned, and then when he came to, he became combative, but it was just like seamless teamwork, I guess is just the best way to put it. So I'm sipping to that because that's what I like to see. Whatever you're drinking on for this episode, water, tea, Gatorade, coffee, wine, y'all go ahead and sip with me, and we're going to cheers to that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video and podcast. If y'all do, go ahead and give it a like. Definitely make sure to comment whatever you feel. We can chat it up in the comment section. I love to hear from you guys, and I'll see you guys in my next episode.